Hello and welcome to another edition of xEssentials. My name's Robert Vanorsdale, and I will be going over designing props within the Layout tab. The Layout tab is one of the crucial elements of xLights that involves with your sequencing. If you fail to build something correctly in the Layout tab, the models is what all your effects get rendered across. So that would be your number two stepping stone within xLights. The setup tab always would be first within, and then the layout tab would come second. Then you get into your sequencing and making sure that your models work correctly. So hopefully after this, you guys will be more educated and understand the layout tab a lot more. And you'll be able to design your own layouts and move forward at that point. Before I start on the layout tab, I just want you guys to know that xLights exists because of people like you. Just make sure, there's a lot of people that donate their time to this and get nothing out of it whatsoever, other than the enjoyment of seeing your shows around Christmas, Halloween, Easter, or whatever holiday you do your show for. I did post the link in the chat window for the donation page. Now, donating just doesn't have to be money. So let's make that clear. I mean, we all have our strengths and weaknesses within the community. Some of us are web page developers. Some of us are programmers. Some of us are good teachers. Some of us teach in real life. Whatever your skill set may be, maybe you're an editor for a magazine or whatever it may be. I mean, they need help writing instruction manuals to help the next newcomer coming in. They need help, programming. They need help with the website. They need help with videos, video editing. Anything that you can offer to the community is outstanding. And I'm sure you can get with Sean, Keith, Gil, any of the guys, and they'll get right back to you if you're willing to donate anything you want to the xLights team. But if you just want to donate money, like I said, the link is posted in the chat window. So continuing on, within xLights, in the layout tab, there are 18 models built into the software. I'm not going to go down through the list right here. We'll touch on each one as we go. I'm going to skip around a little bit as I go through them, just so I keep the more work intense ones, I guess you can say, at the end. So at least if people don't want to stay tuned for the entire thing, then they can jump out at the end and not really lose anything. They'll still have the basic concept. But xLights has these built in. So with these being built in, it just makes it easier for you to take it upon yourself to build your own layout tab and design it. Building a layout tab and designing it is relatively quite easy. And every time that there's a problem where it might get more difficult for something to be done, that's when the developers step in and they try to redesign it to make it easier for you to accomplish your needs. With the layout tab, like I said already, everything gets rendered across it. So building it is important for that aspect. The first thing that we're going to touch base on today are arches. So let me switch my screen. So now with arches, that's going to be your very first model right here. And we're going to click on it. And then when you click and hold and then drag, you'll see the arch comes out. Now you can draw this arch in any direction that you want. It doesn't have to be your standard arch in the yard. It could be something hanging off your roof in that particular shape. Now you'll notice that you see a little red line. Now that little red line means that you're completely horizontal with the model. Going over here to the settings of it, you have number of arches. It's pretty self-explanatory with that. The more you put in here, the more arches that you get. So if you'd put 4, you would get 4 arches over here within the screen. We're going to stick with 1 arch right now. And then nodes per arch is how many pixels that you have across your arch. Lights per node is something that you could use with single strand, or not single strand, excuse me, AC lights. So say you have an 8-section AC light element. This kind of looks foolish. Here, let me make it a little bit bigger. It kind of looks foolish like that. So you can go in and say, there's 10 lights per section. So you still get the full arch, but now it's going to be cut into 8 sections. So you have still your leaping arch with the AC. So we're going to return it back to a pixel arch of 50 nodes. Now your arch degree, and you can see by moving this up and down what it does. And what it does is it slims down the curvature of the arch. So not everybody has perfect arches. Some people keep them lower to the ground, and that's fine. With that, gives you an option in xLights to how to build that arch. Now the arch tilt is if you're trying to relatively draw this in 3D. So say you're going up the driveway and you're trying to make it look 3D, so it looks. I usually try to keep them square whenever I build any layout. I try to keep all my props square, so when it renders and that, you don't have to go into the buffer as much with sequencing. Your starting location has been made very easy now, because now it goes by green square, blue square. And if you look over here, you go to green square and you go to blue square. So which way does your arch start? Does the data from your pixel controller come into the green side, or does the data from your pixel controller come into the blue side? That's what these two options here let you justify. Individual start channels is something if you need to fine tune in each individual arch or strand of the arch. You can click in here. It'll let me. And then it'll bring down, I'll show you more on like a tree is more of a topic that you would use the individual start channel with. Start channel is exactly what it is. What channel does it start with your controller? And if you see the dot, 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 if you click on this, it'll open up this little window here within the layout tab. And this will give you your start channel, or you can go to your output channel, which would correlate to the setup tab in the very left column. Or you can go with universe, and you can select what universe you're starting on and what IP address, or you can select at the end of a model. So say you had an arch before this called arch 1, you could select this arch follows arch 1 in here, and then that's where it would continue on to. So it's kind of like daisy chaining the arches together. Now your preview is, say you have a Halloween, a Christmas, an Easter display, you can build different previews up here and put different pictures in the background with different props. So say you have spider webs for Halloween and you have snowflakes for Christmas. Well, you can have those designated to each preview layout. And with that, in this box here is where you justify that this prop will be. Will it be in your Christmas? Will it be in your Halloween? Will it be in your Easter, Independence Day, and whatnot? Strand node names. What this is when you on your sequencing tab, you can actually go in here, and it's not going to let me make it any bigger. But you can go in here and you can name the strand. So you could name this strand Arch 1 if you absolutely wanted to. And then you could go through and name each node as well. There's some people need it when you're doing like a special design of a prop. And then when you double click in the layout tab on this arch, it would open up the strand and you'd see the strand name that you gave it. Or if you didn't give it a name, it'd just say strand 1. And then if you double clicked on the strand, it would open up your nodes, and then you would see whatever you named it, or if you didn't name it, you'd see node 1 through wherever your prop ended. The face definition doesn't really work for the arch. Dimming curves, if you click on this, I use this a lot for P10 panels. So if you're using this, and your P10s, because there's so many pixels within a P10 panel, it can overpower the whole show. So what this allows you to do is, instead of sequencing and going into and changing the brightness of each effect to 50% brightness, 50% brightness, you can come in here and you can change this, and you'll watch this line will move down with the red, green, and blue to the brightness, and then at 50%, which would be -50 in this, it would only allow your prop to be as bright as 50%, even at 100% power. So it's a nice feature to, like I said, like if you have a P10 panel that's really bright and it's overpowering your show, maybe your pixel tree has 3,200 pixels on it, and when it lights up the neighbor's house and everything around it, and you just don't want that glow to be that bright, so you turn it down. I know a lot of people in the hobby usually run their stuff around 30%, and you really can't tell a noticeable difference. And when they're recording and stuff like that for their videos that they post up, they usually drop it down even further below 30 into like the 15 to 20 range. So this is an easy way to do it per prop if one prop is brighter than the other. Now, with the states, I'm not going to really get a lot into this. Keith did a wonderful video on xlightsvideos.org or xlights.org/videos. The state effect, he built this. If you have a special prop, it uses kind of like the lyric track. And if you've ever sequenced and you said, what does the AB effect do? Because I can't get it to do anything. That's where you need to go to research a little bit for the states effect. What you do is you build a lyric track and you can put in special characters, not characters, but words or sayings or whatever you want to represent how the lights will light up. But then you have to program, like if his example, I think it was with a clock, you could do a clock with it and you could say 8 o'clock and it would light up the correct pixels to make 8 o'clock within that prop that he built. But it's more of a specialized thing. So if you want to learn a little bit more about this with the states in here, check out that video. I don't think it's anything we really need to spend time with today. Submodels, I'll get into submodels further on down the line. I think submodels come in handy a lot when you're dealing with custom models and with Windows. And controller connection. Now this is a really neat concept. Now with controller connections, I think, I could be wrong on this, but I think it's SanDevices, Falcons, Pixlite, and FPP is your 4. I might have missed one.
And J1Sys.
And J1Sys are the controllers that you can upload directly to, which means you really don't have to log into them other than to set up your IP address or what have you. And then after that, xLights will take care of everything else for you. So you'd come into here and say you had, I'm just going to use a Falcon for an example because I'm very familiar with them. Say you have a Falcon and this arch is on output 1. Now what I mean by output 1 is on your Falcon controller, you'll see a Euro plug that says output 1. With that, that's what I'm referring to as output 1. So this comes from the controller down, connects into the green side here on output 1. And now you have to know what kind of pixels you have as well. So I'm going to say these are WS2811 pixels, which is pretty much the standard for the hobby. So you go into here and you go to your ... And when this opens up, you'll see what protocol do you use. And it gives you a whole bunch of options. I mean, you got GECE, PixNet, Renard, 2801s. All of these will upload and it'll configure it to the controller if you set up every one of these correctly. Now, the port means like what output are you physically hooking this to on the controller. So port 1 is what we said we're going to use as output 1, and that's how you would leave it. And you'll see that it'll pop up in here saying WS2811:1. So what that means is when you upload this to the controller, it's going to put in the description even on the Falcon that it's arches on that port. It's going to program that port to WS2811 pixels. It's going to figure out 50 pixels on that output. It's going to figure out what your start channel is and your universe, however you have this set up here. And then it's also going to figure that on your first string ports as 1. On the string port 1, it'll say 1 right there. So everything will be set up for you from there. String properties is all, what are you using? Are your pixels RGB? Are they RBG? Are they GBR? Are they single color? That's where I was getting back to the AC. You can pick your single color and then what color they actually are. Once you pick single color, you can go in here and actually select what color that your arches are. But then just keep in mind whatever color that you select in here is what color they're going to light up on your sequencing tab as well. So if you select that these arches are blue, you have to use blue in the sequencer to get these arches to light up as a single color. your appearance is something just to make this look more appealing to your eye. Say you have the Matt Johnson laser arches, like I call them. So you can increase this to make it look more like the arch, and then you can also do a blended circle. I'm sorry, solid circle, and increase the pixel size to get that arch look. Now with this, just keep in mind that you're going to see circles, so it's not going to look completely perfect in your sequencing tab, but it's going to give you that appearance that it's one of the laser arches that Matt Johnson makes. Transparency, typically you'd use this on if you're building a floodlight model. Your transparency allows this to be see-through, and then the black transparency is when this is off. Instead of seeing just a black outline on your layout, it would dim out the blackness as well for the floodlights. The location, I'm not going to really get into. Just know whenever you move this around, these numbers are going to change. That's pretty much the simplest way to explain this. The height is obviously your height, and the lock can actually lock the element. So now I can no longer move this. You can also access the lock by right-clicking and clicking unlock or lock as well. So let me change this back to normal. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about is candy canes. So with the candy canes, they're set up very similar to the arches, the way they're built. I'm not going to continue to go over all the options underneath if it repeats what I just said. But as you can tell, you still have the red line, so you know when they are. I did have the red line. There it is. So you can see when they are level. You can see that red line appears almost always. But with the candy canes, you can go through, and over here, same thing as the arches. If you have 12 candy canes, you can put in 12. There's 12 beautiful candy canes. We're going to stick to everything with one, just so I can explain the model a little bit better than. The top one here will make it smaller, and then this one will help me out. There you go. So nodes per candy cane is just how it is with the arches. How many pixels is on this candy cane? Lights per node, same thing if you wanted to do a single and you needed to repeat nodes. So you want 4 nodes to be 1. So you could do that and break it up into sections as an 8. And also, if you're trying to get a lot closer to your pixel strips, where each strip is 3 pixels, you could do that as well. It gets a little bit more complicated, and you can just keep it as a simple. If your pixel strips are 50, you can leave it at 50. But if you want to get real detailed, and you know there are 150 LEDs on that 50 pixel strip, you can go in and make each pixel 3. So then it'll understand that way. The height of it is what I just showed you over here. You can grab this little square, make your candy cane taller or smaller. Candy cane rotation, and you can see just by moving it, it's to tilt it. So this would work if you're trying to draw it up the driveway, or if even you're doing like a Marty fan with candy canes, you can use that as well. Reverse is it's like how people say that's not the right way to draw a candy cane. It's supposed to go to the left, not the right. So you can click this, and everybody can be right. And then with sticks, it just takes off your curve. So if you're doing fire sticks, you can click this, and it makes it a straight line going up. So then you don't have to worry about drawing a straight line up. And then if you have multiple fire sticks, this is an easy way to draw it, because we can go right back up here to number of canes and put 12, and you'll get 12 fire sticks going across your yard. Green, blue square, we've already covered that. So the next thing we're going to cover is circle and wreaths. Now, the circle and the wreath, the reason I put this together is because they're very similar models. I typically always use the circle. There's a lot more possibilities to do with the circle, but there is reasons to use the wreath as well. With the circle, which is this one right here, delete this off so you can see me do that again. It's this model right here. There's your circle, and this one right here is your wreath. So I'm going to draw them together, and I'm going to match the size. Now, to match the size, see how this one's already highlighted? I'm going to hold Control and click this one. Now they're both highlighted. Now, because this one is the highlighted one with the blue squares going around it, it's going to match the size of this one. If I wanted it to match the size of this one, I just have to click over here until the blue squares come around this one. And now right click, resize, match size. Now you can see we have two identical ones, very
Robert,
similar.
We're still seeing your other screen. Could you switch to xLights, please?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, let me start over on it. I apologize. Okay, so this is the circle model. This one here is the circle model, which is this model right here. And then this one here is the wreath model. Now you can see they're both very similar. And as I was saying, to make them the same is what I'm going to do is hold down the Control key, and I'm going to click on this circle here. Now you see that this one highlights as well. Now with this one having the blue squares around it, it's going to match the size of this one here. So I'm going to right click here. I'm going to click resize, match the size. And you're going to see now they're both similar, but you can see the pixels aren't completely round on the wreath, and there's a reason for that. With the circle, it draws this more in a matrix form, but it's a rounded matrix. With the wreath, this is more of like a custom model form. And I'll show you what I mean here. If I right click on node layout, now this shows you how all props are built, is the node layout. And if I right click on this and blow this up, you'll see how the wreath looks. If I right click on the circle and show you what it looks like, it's going to look like a single line, because what it's doing is it's starting here, because right here it says, well, it's starting at the bottom, I'm sorry, and it's going clockwise. So it's going to start at the bottom and it's going to go up, around, and come back down. So that's what the single line is showing you going around. Now, the difference between these two, and the reason I say I use the circle a little bit more, with the wreath, you don't have a lot of options under the wreath. And with the circle, if you have an inner circle and then another circle coming in, you can come over here and you can change this to say 75 pixels. And then see your layer size right here. You can change your layer size to whatever you type in here, and then separate it with a comma is how many pixels you have in each layer going around a complete circle. So if I type 25, 25, 25, what I'm telling xLights is there's 25 pixels on the outside, there's 25 pixels on the center ring, and there's 25 pixels on the most in the middle of it. So if I tab out of this, you'll see we have 25 pixels here, 25 pixels here, and 25 pixels here. Now the way this works, because the starting location says bottom outer, is it's going to start here, it's going to come up around, finish here, and then it's going to jump up to here, go around, come back down, and then jump up to here and do the same thing around. Now the wreath doesn't give you that option. So this is when you're trying to really have it filled in, or if you're using a Boscoria wreath, I think he calls it concentric wreath. If you're using those, this is the model you're going to want to use, or there's another option too that I'll show you later on. Now with your starting location, you can change where it starts at, top outer counterclockwise, top outer clockwise. So you can change where you're going, if you're starting from the inside, if you're starting from the outside, if you're starting from the bottom, or if you're starting from the top, and then which way you chose to go. It gives you a lot of options with that. Put these down here. We'll keep a little collection just in case there's questions. Now, the next thing we're going to cover is the Icicle model. And with the Icicle model, let me switch back. I got to keep remembering that so I don't mess up again. So with the Icicle model, it's going to be this one right here. And you're going to click and drag to draw your icicles. And you'll see the red line appears on this one too. And that red line means that we are, if it'll work with me. Okay. The red line means we're completely horizontal with the page. Coming back over here, how many strings is it going across? How many nodes? We've already covered that. Now your drop pattern is going to be your difference. So what this does is what you type in here is where it starts and where it finishes. And then the next one's going to repeat this again. So as you can see, we got 3, 4, 5, 4. So you got 3 pixels here, 4 pixels here, 5 pixels here, 4 pixels here. And now it repeats because that's all we told it. So now it goes back to your 3, 4, 5, 4, and it keeps repeating the whole way across. Now, what happens if you bought 7 drop icicles? Well, you just type a 7 in here, and it'll make every drop 7. This one over here looks weird because there's not enough pixels. So if I'd go in and say, okay, we have 84 pixels, you'll see that it'll even it out. So whatever you type into here is what it's going to repeat. So if we do 2, 3, now you can see it goes 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. So whatever you, like I said, whatever you type into here is what it's going to do and then start repeating itself until it runs out of pixels. Next prop or model will be the matrix. Now with the matrix, everybody refers to these as your TV screens in the yard. So the matrix is just a rectangular square. It can be horizontal or vertical. You can use the top button here to tilt it. And then this one pretty much goes right along with the tree. And the reason I say that is people have a hard time understanding how the strings, the node per strings, the strands per string work on a matrix and on a tree. So with the matrix, number of strings means how many physical connections. Let me repeat that. How many physical connections go back to the controller with data? Not how many times do you power inject it, nothing else, but how many data feeds coming off of your controller are going into this matrix. So if you have 16 data feeds coming off your controller and tapping into each one of these beginning strands, that's how this is set up right now. So this is set up for to have a Falcon sitting here, and you're using 1 through 16 outputs on the Falcon. Each output is going to a different strand of pixels. The strand of pixels are 50 pixels long, and there's only one strand. Now, a lot of people don't build matrices that way. So for an example, say you only wanted to use 4, but you wanted to achieve the same matrix, but you only wanted to use 4 outputs. So what we would do is, how many physical connections are we going to have? 4. That's not what we want. We want it to look exactly like how we just had it, which is this. So we're going to do 4 physical connections to the controller. So this 50 can't be 50 anymore, because now you're going to have 4 physical connections, but we're trying to achieve the same thing. So this will be 200, because you're still going to have 4 connections. So you'll need 4 strands, and that'll be a total of 200 pixels. I hope I didn't lose anybody with that one, because this is a really confusing part. And if I have to come back later into questions to help people understand this, I will. So what I've done here is there's 4 physical connections to the controller for a total of 200 pixels, and there's 4 strands. The 4 strands means it's going to zigzag. So it's going to hit here. It's going to go down, come down a line. So if I use this line here, it's going to go down, come back, and zigzag like that and end here. Instead of just going straight across like we had it and ending here, it's going to continue the data feed in a zigzag form all the way to the end. So the minute I tab out of this, we're going to have the matrix that we already had to begin with. Now, if I go to the node layout, we can justify this by looking at it, and you can see the different shaded colors here. Node 1, string 1 is what this means, N1, S1, and you can see it goes all the way down. We come to the end at 50, and 51 goes right up and comes back. And then if we go down here, we're going to end at 100, and then 101 is going to go up and go back down. So that's the zigzag pattern that I was referring to. And like I said, I know this gets really confusing for people, and it goes hand in hand with the tree model. So if we need to go back on touch on this a couple more times in the Q&A part, that'll be fine. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is single strand. And I think just to save some time, I'm going to talk about the polyline at the same time with it. They're very similar, but very different at the same time. So let's get back over to xLights. The single strand is this one right here. The polyline is right next to it. Single strand works by clicking and dragging, and you have your line. Now you can see with the single strand, there's your red line. So that means I'm completely vertical or horizontal. And if I go down with it, you'll get a blue line, which means I'm completely vertical at that point. Like I said, when I try to design layouts, I try to keep them as square as possible, so I don't have to go to the buffer as much to transform it because the line is on an angle or the line's facing back because it's running down a gutter line or what have you. Now, with the single line, you have your same options here: number of strings, nodes per string, lights per nodes, and then you have your option again for the green or the blue. There's not really a lot of difference with this than anything else that I've already covered with the settings over here. So I'm going to make this just a little bit smaller so we can come back to it in the Q&A. And now we're going to grab the polyline. Now the polyline, like I said, is similar to the single strand, but with the polyline, once you click, it stays with your mouse. So you can see no matter where I go, this line's staying with me. So let's say I go up, and when I click, you can still see this line is chasing me. It's not going anywhere. And then if I click again, the line's still chasing me. And then if I click again, you have to hit the escape key to get the tail to quit following you. Let me repeat that. You have to hit the escape key to get this tail to quit following you. So the minute I do that, you're going to see that now I'm free to move this model around. And this would be perfect for a door frame. And with it, you're going to have to go over here and define how many pixels are on each side. So if you look over here in individual segments, this is the difference between a polyline and a single line and a polyline. You can say how many pixels are on each side. So we can do 20 pixels on the left, 10 pixels on the top, and 20 pixels on the right. And you can see it changed my nodes per pixels as I was doing that as well. Now, a neat thing about the polyline that a lot of models don't offer is the curve that you can add to it. So let's say that you don't have a standard doorway. Let's say you have an archway in front of your home. So we're going to click on this one right here, and we're going to put define arch. So let me do that again. We're going to click on the segment that we want to curve, right click and click define curve. And you're going to get these new little squares. Now, when I move these, I'm going to click and drag to move them. You can see now you can bend the line. So now you can do that archway. If that's how your home is, you can sit there and you can do that archway now above your door without having to use a different model on top of it. So before the polyline existed, we would have put an arch on top of a straight line, and we'd have had 3 models combined to do this. Now with the polyline, we don't have to, because we can take it and we can curve the line on it to make the archway in front of the door. And another thing about it is it stays together. So before, when we draw a straight line up, put an arch on top, put a straight line up, we'd have to move each one separately, or we'd have to click and drag like this to select all those model groups, hold down the control key, and then move all the models together to keep them together that way. When the polyline came out, it reduced a lot of headaches in doing so. Next model we're going to talk about is the spinner. And the spinner is becoming more and more popular, especially that you have vendors out there that are producing the spinner now. It used to be a little bit tricky to build, a little bit time consuming. And like I said, now the vendors are actually producing the spinner. It makes it a lot easier for people to have them in their display. So we're going to go right here to the spinner model. And we're going to click and drag to make it. And now with the spinner model, how many strings do we have on this? So how many connections to the controller? Arms per string, so how many arms are on this? So if we type in 8, you'll see, not 78. If we type in 8, you'll see that you'll get 8 arms. The one's hidden up here behind this line. But we'll go back to, say, 6. So we have 6 arms on this. How many pixel nodes are on each arm of the spinner? So if we change this to 20, you'll see the density of this change. We'll go back to the regular 10. The hollow percent is the center. How big's your center location? So if you reduce that, the spinners get closer. If you increase that, they get further apart. The arc of it, you can just see that's turning it. And then these are, how did you build it? Did you start at the center and come out and then go counterclockwise? So you'd start here, finish here, start here, finish here, start here, finish here, and you would build 6 pieces to run the data that way. Most people would build it by starting here with the controller connection, go down, then run a line, a data line back, and then come back this way with the data line and start going back up. Or did you start with the end counterclockwise, would be going from this end and going in, and then going from this end and going in. The zigzag start allows you to flip it. So you could start at the end. If you click on the zigzag start, it allow you to start here at the end and go in, and then it would come up this one. So you'd go 1 through 10 pixels here, 11 through 20 here, and then you'd go 1 through 10 pixels here, 11 through 20 here. So you'd still have to build that data line going back up the next one. Next model I'm going to refer to is the star. And as I'm going through this, just keep in mind, all these are pre-built. So I'm not using any external program at all other than xLights to produce all of these thus far. So we're going to go right here to the star. Now the star is set up similar to the circle, except it's a star pattern. So with the star, how many strings are on the star? How many nodes are on that string? And then what's your layer size? So with your layer size here, we have 1 string, 50 pixels, 5 points. Now the points of the star is how many points are actually on here. So if we change this to 6, you'd see the star would change. So how many points are actually on your star? Now the layer size, like I said, similar to the circle. So if I would type in here, let's do like a 270 star from Boscoyo. So if I type in 270 pixels, and now his star is 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20. Now this is the exact star that you would get if you bought that, and that's how it'd be laid out. Now what the layers mean, and when I use 6 layers, it kind of gets confusing. So let me change this back to 75 and just do 3 layers so you can see. Now, as I explained in the circle, each layer is how many pixels are on each one. So it doesn't look great. Okay, for some reason it's not working in with me. But what it should do is exactly what the circle did, bringing your inside sections. Let me go back to the 270 and see if it works for me again. Seems like I broke something or I screwed something up, which is quite possible. Okay, so what it means is how many pixels are in each. So when you go around this star, on the outside of the star going around, there would be 70 pixels on the outside edge. And then once you'd come up one, which would start this pixel right here, how many pixels are on the next layer? So you're telling it every layer and separating it with a comma. So every layer of it is 70 pixels on the outside, 60 for the next layer, 50 for the next layer, 40 for the next layer going in. And like I said, I know I'm brushing across these quick, trying to stay within the time limit. So if there's any questions, try to hold them to the end and I'll come back to it. The next prop that I'm going to go to is the tree. And as I explained about the tree, it is very similar to the matrix. So I'm going to go over it again just because I know the tree and the matrix with the configuration gets very confusing, and I feel repeating this is probably going to help. So with the tree, what type of tree do you have? Is it round, flat, ribbon? And this all changes how it looks over here. How many degrees is it? Right now you can see there's a strand in the back, comes all the way around. If you only have a 180 tree, type in 180 here, and you can see the back strands disappear. It starts here, comes across. And you can have it start here and go the opposite way by choosing the starting location. So we're going to stick with a 360-degree tree. Your spiral wraps in the LOR world would be when you start a strand here, and instead of coming straight down with it, you would do a wrap around. Now, would that wrap go just one time around, which means it would start here, wrap around the tree, and finish here? Or would it be like a 1.5 wrap where it'd start here, wrap around the tree, and finish in the back? That's what your spiral wraps give you. So if I put one wrap on there, you'll see that this spins the strands around in order to do that. If I go to 0.5, that would be just the strand starting here, wrapping around and ending at the back of it. Top bottom ratio is something I use a lot with these models. It brings in the top closer or it spreads the top further apart. These are great if you're going to use the tree model. I cheat with these and use them to put around bushes and set them up as single channel AC elements. It's a great cheat with it. And then with your perspective, and you'll see what the perspective does is it flattens the tree out. So it kind of adds like a 3D appearance, but there is no 3D in the layout tab. But you can see this is like you're going up into drone mode, should I say? You're up above it at that point. I will say, however you design this, this way, your effects will render that way. So your tree isn't built this way in your yard. You're not up above it, should I say. So when you render an effect on your regular tree, which would be this, they're not going to go straight up as you expect. So if you're doing a horizontal effect going up the tree like that, you'll notice that because you have it on the perspective change, you'll notice that the effect will go up the tree a little crooked. It's not a big deal. You won't really notice it on a small tree. If you have a larger tree, it's it's easier to notice on a larger tree. But the perspective does matter on the way the effects get rendered. Now we're going to go right back to the strings. Now the strings, as I said prior, the strings are how many physical connections do you have to the tree. So if you have 16, you got your controller sitting here in the middle, every port on the Falcon's used, all 16 of them, and you go around, that's typically how a lot of people build a pixel tree. So you'd have your 16 strands going around, every one of them coming back to the controller, and they're all going up to the top and they're ending. There's no connections at the top to it. It's all at the bottom or at the top. You can put it in either way, however you choose it here in this menu here. So excuse me on that. But typically you put your controller on the ground and you'd run each strand into each output into each individual strand and run up. Now, if you're trying to save outputs and still achieve this, you can do 8 strings, I'm sorry. And now remember, strings means physical connection to the controller. So because we did that, we'd have to double our nodes to get the same look of a tree. And then the strands per string, what this means is how many times does the strand wrap? So with doing it this way and achieving the 16 strand tree that we just had, we'll start here, we'll go up, and then the data feed will come over to the next strand and come down and end here instead of just ending at the top like it did previously. So if we put a 2 here, now you see we have the same tree, but now what it's doing is you're putting one input here, it's going up the tree, back down the tree, and ending here. And then your next input would be here. So you're skipping every other strand with an input from the controller, and you're letting that controller control 100 nodes each, with the strand being bent over, coming back down. The next prop I'm going to go over is the window frame. Now, the window frame, it used to be a model that I used to warn people on building, and always build it in xLights before you physically build it. Well, due to recent updates in xLights, so thank your developers, you no longer have to worry about that. It used to be once you built the window frame, you could only go one direction with it. And it was tricky, and everybody built their windows the opposite way, and then you'd go into xLights and you'd figure out that you built it the wrong way. So now with the window frame, and with me saying that, just let me warn you, if you've built window frames in the past, with the recent update, it may break your windows. So just check, log on, bring up your xLights, just check it out, make sure your windows are still working correctly the way that you have them, and that just so next Christmas you're ready to go and you're not thinking that you're ready to go and then you start playing it and your windows start giving you problems. But with the window frame, it used to be you had to go into node layout and you had to see where did the node start. So on this one, your node starts here, one string, and it goes up, across, down, and finishes back up down here at the bottom left corner. Now we have this great direction thing, and we can change that. That was never possible until now. So now you can go in and you can look at it, and now you can change the way that you build it to go across the bottom and then up. So it's just counterclockwise or clockwise. But it's a great little thing, because a lot of the people that I've talked to and they always build them backwards, including myself. When I first built my window frames, I built 7 of them for my house, and when I was done, I rebuilt 7 of them for my house. It was quite fun. But now with the window frame, I'm going to go over a couple things with this. The lights on top, that's how many pixels go across the top. Lights on the left and right. So this number, add up how many lights are on this side and how many lights are on this side. But you only have to do it for how many lights are on one side, and then it multiplies the two. So if I do 10 lights here, you'll see it puts 10 lights on the left, 10 lights on the right. If I do 10 up here, you'll see 10 lights across the top, which isn't going to work because it's a rectangle. So let's do 5. And the reason it was giving me that weird, because the bottom was still short, or longer, excuse me, and the top was still short. So now we have 5 pixels on the top, 5 pixels on the bottom, 10 on both sides. So with that, I'm going to show you how to use a submodel on this, because this is typically what I use a lot of submodels on, that and with custom. And I just think the submodels are pretty easy to explain doing a window frame. Now, if we go into submodels here, this is my window frame over here. It's not completely set up as of right now, but what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to add. Now, when we add, we're just going to do a test. And now you can see there's all my pixels on my window frame. Great thing about submodels is you don't have to remember what every number of the pixels are. If you hover over top of it, it tells you, hey, this is 16. Hey, this one over here is pixel 30. So we're starting at the bottom right, or left, excuse me, and we're going to the right. So now we're going to do node ranges, and we're going to build each one. So if I wanted to do the horizontals only, so when I sequenced and I put an effect, I just wanted it to go across the horizontal of the windows, we would do 1 through 7 and 22 through 16. So I'll do 1-7, 22-16. And you'll see that those pixels lighted up to let you know that you set this up correctly for your horizontal. Now, if we add another one, call it test 2 for the vertical. And now for this one, we want to do your verticals. So we want pixel 22 through 30 plus just 1. So we'll do 22-30, comma 1, and you'll see we'll get the left side there. And then on this side, we'll do 7 through 16. So we'll put another comma in here, and we'll do 7 through 16, and you'll see the other side light up now. So now we know that we configured our 2 submodels for the horizontal of the window frame and for the vertical of the window frame. That's just an easy way to do submodels, and I think it's very easily explained on the window frame. Now, there is other options in here. I don't really have enough time today to cover all the options with the sub buffer and that. I mean, I guess I can go to the matrix here. I'll go back to the matrix real quick, and we'll do a submodel in here using that one because it's easier to see. So if we go to if we go to add, we do test here, and then we add a sub buffer. So this will only allow you to display something within what part of this black area that you want. Now you can actually go in here and move this around to what area that you're trying to accomplish, or you can go up to generate and you can say, hey, I want 5 vertical slices. We'll change that to 4 just so it makes quarters. 5 or 4 vertical slices. So if I click OK, you'll see what it does. And you have 1 slice there, 1 slice there, 1 slice there, and 1 slice here. Now what that does, and you can see the pixels lighting up over here, you'll be able to do 4 different effects across that same matrix. So if you're doing, let's say you're doing the singing faces and you're using the images to import, you can import 4 different images on your matrix and have 4 people singing at one time going across your matrix. Move this back down, move this down. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about is a really neat new feature, and it's the download feature. Now, with the download feature, this is a new addition to xLights, and what it does is, prior to this feature, we had to go in and we had to physically create a custom model for anything that we did that wasn't within the model range up here that I've already went over with. And so this made it really easy for everybody to be able to produce the models that used to take us a lot of time for. We used to have to go to the Google Share drive and download them in, to import them in and what have you. So what you do is you click on the down arrow right here and you draw your little box. It's going to look blank, but it won't here in a second. Now, when you do this, it's going to load up. Now, there's only one vendor in this program right now, and there might be more in the future. There might not be, but for right now, we have Boscoya Studios. And with Boscoya Studios, you can see you have different options. You got Christmas, Halloween, Valentine's Day. These are all models that Boscoya Studios has built, as long with the community as well, has chipped in to help out. So let's just say, instead of using what we used to do, we used to cheat and use this for Snowflake if we didn't feel like building it, or we'd go in and we'd actually type in all the numbers of where all the pixels are. So now you can actually go into here and you can click on, so we use like a snowflake for an example. And when I open up this snowflake here, so I went and I bought a 47-inch snowflake. Now you got to pick what kind you bought off the website. So I bought the 3-prong fancy. So this is what it looks like on, not on his website, but this is what it looks like within his AutoCAD program. But this is what it gets cut out. So you look at that and you say, yep, that's what I bought. And then the only thing you do is click import model. And you'll see you have a beautiful snowflake ready for you to go. You can go in here and click on the wiring view now. So if you bought this, you can go into the wiring view and see, how do I build this? And you can enlarge this and see that the pixels start here and it goes down, and then you start skipping around. So you have to follow this if this is the model you're going to use, you have to follow this build exactly to get your effects to whatever they're doing in xLights actually work on your snowflake when it's your prop hanging on your home instead of just being xLights. It'll look beautiful in xLights, but if you didn't build it correctly, it's not going to do what xLights is telling it to do. So make sure that you follow the wiring on how to wire it up, follow where every pixel needs to go. And then with a lot of these, the submodels that I was showing you on the window, a lot of people went in and already built submodels. I picked a horrible one to display. That one doesn't have submodels, but for a lot of these downloaded features, the submodels are already added in. So you have all that already configured in, where you don't have to go in and actually build the submodels. Because some people just build the arms without the prongs hanging off of them to make them look like spinners within the submodels, and then you don't have these little end fingers lighting up. So let me make that smaller and move it out of the way. Okay, I'm going to go over this real brief. This is something that could take a lot of time to explain in great detail, but it's not really that hard. There is a custom model generator that you build the prop and you run the custom generator. It flashes 1 pixel at a time as you're recording it with your cell phone or video camera, and then you import that video back in, and xLights will build the custom model for you. So that's a great new feature. And but what I'm going to show you is that the import is, if somebody else already built the model and they shared it on the Google Drive, it's similar to the download. There's a little bit extra work involved in it with the import. So say you're going to get the same effect. It's going to draw clear until you open it up, and then we're going to go into I must not have brought. Oh yeah, there it was. So this is a model that was built for one of the Living Light Show 174 nodes off of the Boscoya website. So if somebody shares an X model with you, you'd use the import effect. So the only thing you do is click on it, open it up, and then there's your snowflake. So if somebody shared it, like I said, it's similar to the download, but with this one, you physically have to have the file. It's not within xLights. Only the ones that are in the download section are in xLights. These ones, like you said, you'll find it typically on the Google Share Drive, or somebody even made it for you and sent it to you or whatever. And then with the custom model, which is this little smiling face over here, it's going to draw clear, but you're not going to get anything with this one because you got to physically insert the data yourself so xLights knows what you're referring to. So over here, we're going to choose a background image for this one. So we're going to do that picture. And now it needs the model data. So now you're going to click on model data, and it's going to open up a Microsoft Excel looking thing. And we're going to change the width and the height. So that's how many cells do you have across and down. So we're going to change this to 100. And we're going to change this one to 100. Okay, so now these buttons down here, you can zoom in and out with a minus and a plus. So we can zoom out a little bit. And now you can see there's that snowflake. Now you got to go through and you got to type in where you want each pixel to be. So with this one here, you can see the little red dots of where the pixels are going to be, or you can use the auto numbering. Now this little slider here will make the background transparent so you can see your numbers a little bit easier. And I'm not going to build an entire model. I'm just going to explain each way that you can do it. Now, say I started right here with my first pixel. So I'd click on this box. Let me zoom in so you can see what I'm doing on that box. So click on this box, you type in a 1. You'd click on this box, you type in your 2. Click on this box, type in your 3, and etc. And you'd count out your pixels the whole way through. If you're building a single, single strand, not a single strand, I always say that, but it's an AC element, and say all these are going to be the same color, then you just keep repeating the same number through 1, 1, 1. If there's only one output going to the entire snowflake. Another nice feature is the auto increment, which is this here. And what it does is you got to click active, and then you got to click auto increment. And what that's going to do is going to keep adding it. And then you see you'll start at channel 1. So if I click here, there's 1. I click on the next one, there's 2. Click on the next one, there's 3. Click on the next one, there's 4. So it makes it a lot easier and very quick to go through and build a custom model if you need to. Now, if you're doing this again for a single channel prop, you can go through here, delete these back out. You can turn the auto increment off, keep this to 1, make it active. And now everything that you click will stay 1. And then if you need to change the channel, going throughout, say, this is your first output on the AC controller, this is your second output on the AC controller, you can go through and you can change the numbers as you're going through each piece. Now, with this, you can see where the numbers lie, and you can flip these if need be. So if you go to flip this entire thing, let me zoom out so I can do this. So if I go to flip this entire thing, you can see the numbers are still right here. And if I click flip horizontally, it's going to do exactly what I told it. Now my numbers are over here. If you need to, we'll go reset back. So the numbers are back over here again. If I click flip vertically, the numbers are going to be down here now. So we'll click that again to start back over. Now, if I click reverse, you're going to see that it reversed all the numbers on the screen. So I had, clicked the wrong one. So I had 1, 1, 1, 1. Let me zoom in a little bit so you see that one. So you see 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2. So if I click reverse, you're going to see they're going to switch. So now we have 2s here, and we got 1s here. Now the renumber, I haven't used this option a lot. I think I'm going to use it like one time. But say you're going through and you're clicking, and you accidentally, now this is 174 nodes, I think it is. So say you go through this whole thing and you get to the end, and your very last one you click on, there's no more red circles. Very last one you click on is 172. And you're like, I know that there's 174 because I pushed them all. And according to the website, that's how many there are. So now you need to find where you doubled a number. So say right at the beginning at number 2, you had 2, 2 instead of having 2, 3. Well, you can click on the second 2 and tell it to increase everything by 1, and it'll go through and start that one at 3 and then increase everything following it around. So it's a nice added feature for when you do make that mistake. Instead of costing you another 30, 40 minutes of your time to rebuild the whole model again, you can just go through, click one thing, and it'll auto renumber everything quickly for you. So let me delete out the custom out of the way. Right click, click delete, it's gone. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about is the DMX part of it. Now, I don't have moving heads in my display, so I never really had to deal a lot with moving heads. So there's going to be some things that a lot of you are going to know a lot better than I do with the moving heads. But if we build DMX prop, you'll see. Now, this is where the beam of light is, to my understanding. Like I said, I don't have any of these, so I'm not going to pretend to know these. And then here's all your options for them. So I'm sure if you have one, this will make a lot more sense to you, to your tilt and your pan, to spin it around, lift it up and down. The only thing I typically use the DMX for is the floodlight, which is down here. And the reason I like the floodlight on here, because I don't typically use standard floodlights that are just RGB. I use floodlights that are red, green, blue, yellow, UV, white, and black light. So, and then I have intensity. So I have a lot more than just 3 channels with my flood. So this makes it a little bit easier because I can add how many channels that I have, which ones are the RGB, and what I need the other channels to do. With your floodlight, like I told you, come down here, change your transparency so it's not blocking everything with this circle. You can change your transparency, and then when it's off, you can change your black transparency. So when it's off, you don't have a big black circle on your screen in front of your window or your peak of your house or what have you. It cleans it up a little bit. But with this DMX floodlight prop, you can say how many channels are your floods. Typically, you have 3 channels of floods. What channels are your floods? 1, 2, 3 is the typical standard. And then that's pretty much set up for it, because then you have your start channel of where it starts at. But with this DMX style, if you have a prop that you're trying to use and you don't know what to use in xLights, always check out the DMX style ones, because the DMX models, because there's a lot of options in here. You have your moving heads, you got your moving sidebars, you got your floodlights, and then you have the Skulltronic thing as well, which controls your servos and that. If you search Skulltronic, there's a little bit more explanation on that, but it follows your facial movements and things like that with a different program, and then it controls the servos as well. If you have a singing singing prop that isn't lights and it actually moves by servos. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you is, I saved this one for last because for some reason it tends to break my layout, is the image model. So what the image model is great for is, instead of building a custom model of, say, a snowman sitting in your yard, or just using, a prop like this to simulate, a blow up that's in your yard, or a blow mold. And when you turn that on, you just know that Santa's out there next to the mailbox on the blow mold, just lit up. You can actually go out and you can take a picture of Santa and you can put him into your display. Now, it's this little Rudolph here. You click on this, it's going to give you this option here. And now we're going to go and we're going to select the image. Now, the image can be anything. I'm just going to select the snowflake. So say this is the snowflake. This is my blow mold snowflake. And what I'm going to do is, that's it. That's the entire thing. And what this does now is this will turn on and off when you sequence it, but when it's off, it'll disappear. You can change the transparency of it a little bit, but when it's off, it'll actually disappear. And then when you turn it on, it'll light up if you change your transparencies. If you don't, you'll just have a little dark image sitting on the corner of your screen, and that, or wherever you put it in your layout. And then when you turn it on, this would light up just like this. And you can see right here the off brightness. So this here allows you to change this, so it'll be dim lit. The photo will be dim on your sequencer, and then when you put an effect to it, it'll go to 100% brightness. Or you could turn this to 0, where this will be black, and then when you turn it on, it goes to 100% brightness. It actually didn't break my layout tab that time, so that's a plus. The last thing that I have for you today is just a couple layout tabs extras, little tricks in that I've learned along my way, and a lot of people showed me tricks and things like that, or I've been on this Zoom call and watched somebody do that, and I go, huh, that's how you do that. So say you had this here, let's really screw them up. This, that one's not going to let me grab it, and this. So now we go in the layout tab, and we want these sit across my roof line. So I want these to be straight with my roof. So you can click and drag to highlight them all. And then the one that is selected, you always see the blue blocks on it, means that's where it's going to line everything up to. So if I right click on here and go to align, these are your right click menu options, and go to align and go to bottom. Now it's going to line them all by the bottom of the arch, top of the arch, left of the arch, right of the arch. So if I go to bottom, you'll see now they're a complete straight line going across my screen instead of them being all crooked. Now this also works vertically. Is if I do it this way and I highlight these, now it's going to align them all to this one here, whichever side I select, and I can align to the left, I can align to the right. So if I click the left, you're going to see that they all aligned down the left side, and now they're a straight line going vertically. Some new things with it, you can also right click them, and a lot of people overlap props. So say this is your circle here, and then the circle's halfway in your doorway. So every time you try to move the circle, every time you try to move your doorway, you're moving a circle, and every time you try to move the circle, you're moving the doorway. Well, now you can go in like I showed you earlier, and you can either click lock here, or you can click lock here. And now when you do that, so I lock the door frame now, when I click on this circle, I can move it. And if I accidentally select the doorway, I can't move it, which will save you a lot of time, because you'll sit there on your screen and try aligning all these, getting them nice and straight. The next thing you know, you click on it and you're like, oh, and then you're back to doing it. And using the mouse to line these up takes a good bit of time. So here's a little trick. If you want this to line up, or you need it to be a certain position, say this candy cane needs to be dead center in the middle of that arch. So you can take it and click on this, and you know, you can try to get it with your mouse, and then you leave go and the thing moves over 2 feet. But what I found out that is very easy is just click on the prop and then use your arrow keys on your keyboard, and you can move it 1 pixel at a time on the screen. And pixel, as I refer to, is the actual pixel on the screen sizing. So you can move this and you can tweak this in, or even if you're trying to get it at the bottom of it, where the arch sits directly on the top of it, so you're going to hit that blue square with it, and you're moving around, you can just use your arrow keys after you click on that model, and you can fine tune it right into where you need it to be. The xLight projects exist because of people like you. Help continue the project by making a donation today at www.xlights.org/donate.